Good day, folks, and welcome to review number 61. Today we're going to be looking at one of the strangest flying machines I've ever seen. It's a look at the Mastermind Creations Night Morpher Screecher. So, starting off looking at the packaging, Screecher comes packaged in a cardboard box with a nice glossy image on the front displaying the figure. You've also got the Cyber Engine Night Morpher logo up here in the top right corner and the KM-05 Screecher down here in the bottom left. On the opposite side, as it's really hard to tell which is front and which is back, you have further images of the figure in robot and vehicle mode on a white background, which kind of really pops compared to the more orange, reddish, black of the other image. On the sides of the packaging, there's images of the figure in almost kind of an X-ray view. You've got the robot mode pictured on one side and the vehicle mode pictured on the other. The top of the packaging also has further images of the figure, mainly a close-up shot of the figure's face and the larger overview of the vehicle mode. Opening up the package, you find that the figure is packaged in a nice plastic tray, and this is a fairly thick plastic tray too. It's not the typical cheap bubble plastic you find on a lot of retail toys, and it's located further in another protective cardboard box. So the figure is pretty well protected in the packaging. So here we have Screecher in his robot mode, and the first word that comes to mind to describe him is he looks sharp in more ways than one. Just the look of him, though, I mean, there is a lot of detail in it here, and it turned out very clean, especially the paint jobs. The metallic paint apps you have just look absolutely beautiful. And then the other aspect of these sharp is you've got a lot of pointy bits here on the propellers, the wings, stabilizers, and there's no child safety limits here that they applied. But I think he looks great. As for the articulation of the figure, you've got a ball-jointed head here, shoulders, you've got a swivel joint as well as a ratcheting shoulder joint there. You've got a bicep swivel. You've got the elbow joint there. You have a ball-jointed wrist. You've got a hip swivel here. You've got another swivel and ratcheting hip joint there. You've got a double-jointed knee there. And what's really cool is if you look, when you move his knee, parts of the mechanism actually turn there. And then the feet really actually kind of impressed me, because at first glance, you wouldn't think there's any kind of ankle articulation with a foot like this, at least from typical retail Transformers. But if you look here, this front part is on a ball joint, so it swivels, and the heel swivels too. So you can really stabilize this figure compared to just, propping him up with his foot on the side, like a lot of figures when you have a large foot like that. They did a good job when they engineered this figure. Another great feature of this robot mode that I wanted to highlight here was this head sculpt. They did a great job of capturing Starscream's likeness here, especially with that smirk he's got going on. The other thing about this head sculpt, I did want to point out, Mastermind Creations has been kind of known for light piping, especially if you look at like their Annihilator figure. The light piping in that was just phenomenal. Now, you still have some light piping going on here. It's just not nearly as bright as Annihilator, but it's still there, but it's just not quite as good as some of the other figures we've seen. But overall, this head sculpt is great. All of Screecher's weapons and accessories are really attached to him, so he doesn't come with anything loose in the packaging. But as far as weapons go, he's got these Gatling guns, which are basically the same, or fit right where his null rays would be. And then he has these blades that are attached to his hips here, which is really almost kind of a nod towards the masterpiece Starscream, which was the original one that had the parts that hung down that were supposed to be reminiscent of samurai blades. But these blades, they attach down here, and it's actually kind of a neat little way these attach. It's kind of a dovetail attachment here, so you can see where the top part, or the bottom part of the blade and the part on his hip just kind of dovetail together here. And the first time you pop these apart, it's a little scary. You feel like you're going to break them, but they just attach there. And then his Gatling guns, they are removable, but they can also peg together themselves to make kind of a double-barreled weapon. And you can push this down, and he can use it as a handheld weapon. Well, if I can get the thing to push down there. There we go. And he's got a handheld, double-barreled Gatling gun then. And before we jump into Screecher's transformation here, I thought I'd point out this little handout that Mastermind included with the packaging. It's basically, they're very aware of the fact that this figure has some very delicate parts to it, and they want to make sure that when you are transforming your figure back and forth, that you don't break it. So they give you all of these little tips here on where things may or may not break, in areas where you need to be careful when you're transforming or posing the figure. Now on to Screecher's transformation. When you look at the number of steps involved to transform this figure, you wouldn't really expect him to be that much more difficult than, say, a typical Voyager class figure. However, somehow, Screecher ends up being one of the most daunting transformations in my collection. I think a large part of that has to do with all of these small, fragile parts, especially those ones associated with that caution page I was talking about. See, as you're manipulating the figure in your hand, your subconscious mind is warning you, don't break it, don't break it, don't break it. Now, especially as you get farther along in the transformation, you also start wondering, okay, so how do I grip the figure while I'm moving this part over here? Then the other issue that makes this figure challenging is that all of the tolerances are pretty tight. Now, this is a very well-made figure, but because of those close tolerances, many of the tabs on this figure take some force to get them to hold into place. So now you start worrying about, okay, so if I press too hard here, am I going to break this piece or am I going to break that piece? Despite some of the fear this figure can induce during the transformation, though, Mastermind has really engineered a marvel. I'm particularly impressed with the automorph features, which I usually find hinder a figure's design. Now, while I probably won't be transforming him that often, I still think Mastermind Creations has really shown off some great work with their engineering skills in this figure. So here's Screecher in his vehicle form, if you can call it that. This thing is just wild. It's got kind of a steampunk flying machine look to it. To be honest, I doubt the thing would ever really fly, but it is kind of a neat design, and it is very similar to the Hearts of Steel design that it's based off of. But all the propellers turn. You've got on the bottom, the landing gear, so to speak, are basically rail wheels that will match up to the tracks that came with Annihilator. So you can actually hook a hitch up to Annihilator and pull Screecher behind him if you want. But yeah, it's a different looking vehicle mode by any means, but I think it's still a neat design, although I think the robot mode far outshines it. I have to admit that I still haven't had a chance to read the Hearts of Steel comics. I promise, though, they're on my iPad and I'll get to them as soon as I can. Still, from what I have seen, the designs that Mastermind Creations have done have been phenomenal. I own Annihilator, and I got a good look at Cyclops at TFCon. And to this date, I'd say that Screecher is the best product they've made so far. This figure nails the character model, is made from quality material, and manages to pull off a great transformation. I'd definitely recommend picking up at least one of the Not Seeker molds just for the experience. I really like this figure, and I can't wait to see what Mastermind Creations has in store next.